Hello, my friends. Welcome back to Meditative Musings podcast with your host, Jenny Stone, and my beautiful goddess sister, Vipassana sister, Nacy. This woman has a beautiful credential list. And she sent me her bio, and normally I'll just pick and choose little pieces, but it's so poetic. I want to read the whole thing. So, how do you say your last name? I didn't even ask.
So my last name is Mataoa de Montero.
De
Uh,
Montero. Mata Oa de Montero. Oh my gosh, so
let's
beautiful.
see.
So she, her, a practitioner of karmic and evolutionary astrology. So I'm really excited to get into some of the stuff that's happening right now because everybody's feeling a little crazy pants and everybody wants to blame the planets.
Mhm.
And I'm one of those people. With like, a little cheekiness. She's also a Reiki master and an intuitive healer. Her work seeks to honor the integrity or integration, my bad, but also integrity of how the body, mind, and soul work together through the practice of karmic astrology and evolutionary astrology, Reiki, grief work, and death shepherding in the service of life. I love that. I've heard of death doulas, so death shepherding,
Mhm.
another beautiful phrase for that. And through the lifting up of indigenous wisdom practices, the world needs this so much right now, Nacy. You are
Mhm.
just like such this bright beacon of light. She is a nurturer, a mystic, a devotee of the Great Mother, and is deeply passionate about all the ways that we can work together to build a healthy, whole, more love filled world. Amen. Aho, sadhu,
Mhm.
namaste, a little woman too. Like just so lovely. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you, Nacy. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm so excited to be here. I was just looking forward to this. I watched your entire episode with Andy, who is our other passionate sister, and I was just like, I love that conversation. I love the entire thing, and I was like, I'm gonna be here for these podcasts. I'm gonna listen in. You just have such a lovely way of like just pulling the juice of the universe into words and pouring it out, and I see you showing up in so many different ways from your morning meditations. Like always there is an invitation in everything you do, and I honor your continual showing up. Like you are here, you are doing your work, but then you are showing up, and everything you do is shared out with the world. And I just like, I'm so blessed to be here. So thank
Oh,
you.
thank you so much. Just the juice of the universe pouring
Just
through.
the juice. Universe juice. There's a little piece of me that's a line from Kung Fu Panda, and I think he says it's going to take a little more than universe juice to fill this body. And so it's just like I feel fed though as like a Neptune rising, like Sag Sun in the 12th house. Like we'll get to kind of what that means in a little bit, but I feel fed by the juice of the universe. And so like when I listen to you speak, when I'm like interacting with different podcast people who are out there sharing their work, it feeds me. Like it literally fuels me. I don't like wake up dreaming about food, but I'm like, I should listen to that podcast. I'm going to read that book. Like I am fed by the juice of the universe. So thank you.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I'm so excited to see what juice, like mixture of cosmic
Exactly.
find with our conversation today. And
Mhm.
in tradition, I pull a card today. This book, Bleeding Ink by Brooke Hepton, one of my favorites. It's like an oracle book for me. It's a journaling book, but I've never written in it because I continue to just every time I'll flip it and there's these beautiful things that come. So this is what I flipped to today. Stay in your magic. People come and go. People come and people go. Things change. Life goes bonkers more than occasionally for some of us. It's okay. You're okay. Breathe, wild one. Find something to hold on to within yourself. Where is your magic? Dig deep within yourself and stir that shit up. And when you find it, don't ever let go. Not for anything or anyone. Where is your courage? Rise. You are more powerful than you've been allowed to believe. When do you feel most alive? Do more of that. Put your hands in the dirt, dance, grow, sing, write, or create. And then the writing prompt is, where are you free? Write about that place. Find your way there. Write it the way it feels. And I love her ability to just hit right at the core. And I feel like this is such an important, of course, cards and these oracles are just, this divination is so powerful. But it still blows me away at how relevant they always are, because
Mhm.
we're in such a wild time right now. Life goes bonkers more than occasionally. And it says for some of us, and this is where I'd be like, oh, everybody, everybody
Mhm.
is going through some shit right now. But it's okay. You're okay. Breathe and find something to hold on to within yourself. And it feels like there is this massive shift in consciousness, in realizing that the way that it's been is no longer serving us. But we don't know where to go from here. We don't know what to do. And so there's a lot of fear of that unknown. But this is the beautiful time to really step into your magic. Where is your magic? That thing that lights you up, that makes you feel the most alive. That is what you came here to do. And I think that you can find a lot of this magic in your chart.
Mhm.
I
For
know
sure.
I learned how, I mean, more than just Aquarius, right? And for the longest time, Nancy, I have to tell you, I didn't know that Aquarius was an air sign until I was 40.
Well, I mean, really, what do any of us know about this esoteric language of the cosmos of the universe? It's like a very symbolic, very layered language that actually has like a really strong, like high threshold in terms of like a barrier in learning it because the pieces all go together. So you have to begin somewhere and just start with like, what does the sun mean? What does my sun in Aquarius mean? What is Aquarius? Like, and even that is like too much information sometimes for people to be like, what, how does that apply to my life? Like, I don't know what that means that I have an Aquarius sun. Then you find out you have a moon, you have a Mercury, all that that means. Oh, it's in a house. Like, what does that mean? Like, but the first time that I encountered astrology was like when I was a little kid, and you, I was like, there were um, horoscopes in the newspaper. At the time, you would get your newspaper and there would be like horoscopes, and I would always read mine. Little did I know I was kind of reading, well, actually, I was reading the right one because you're meant to read the horoscope for your rising sign. It just so happens my rising sign and my sun are the same sign. So I was always reading the right one. But a lot of astrologers will say, like, oh, you can read for your sun sign or your rising sign. It doesn't really matter. But astrology horoscopes are written based on the houses. So, like, where are planets traveling in your particular chart? The houses are areas of life. So, like, when they're writing that, they're writing it based on your rising sign. So, you actually want to read for your rising sign. Now, the advent of like internet makes it so easy to figure out your birth chart if you would like to like go to AstroSeek. I've been thinking for the longest time I just need to make a video on like walking through going to AstroSeek, putting in this information, and here's what you're looking at and here's what it means, because that's really your true initiation into this language of like finding these pieces, looking at it. There's a transmission that happens just from like looking at your birth chart. But yes, I think that we're not necessarily designed to hold the entire like imprint of the universe in our consciousness at any time. So it makes no sense to believe that like you would just naturally pick up a language that is so layered and so unconscious to us most of the time without having a deep devotion and dedication to learning it, or having a guide of somebody else who can say like, okay, here's what I'm seeing when I'm looking at your chart. And yet I will always tie it back to something that one of my favorite astrologers says. Like, she hounds on this every single post she makes. She says, you don't need to know your astrology to understand what is happening in your life or what karma you carry or what your life path and purpose is. She's like, life will initiate you. It's going to show up. Like we started with this read on it's tumultuous. Like, life is feeling tumultuous. Like, I, as an astrologer, can understand that Mars is opposing Pluto in the sky, and they've been doing this dance back and forth. So I can understand it on a layered level, but you will feel it in your own life. You're just going to feel that you are having bigger reactions. They are blowing out of proportion. People are going a little bonkers. What was the word that she used? Like, it's chaotic on people's comment threads. There's fighting. There's there's a need to like speak your voice with intensity, heat, fire, and passion. And yet we are speaking from the most unconscious parts of ourselves right now, the most karmically reactive parts of ourselves. And many of us don't even recognize that. We don't know why we just went off in the comment thread, like with a random stranger that you don't even know, or a Facebook friend you haven't like actually interfaced with, and you're like, unfollow me then. It's it's raw, it's visceral. And like the sky is showing us this. If we looked in the sky mirror, we would see it. And then maybe we could say, oh, like deep breath, find my one place, like coming back to calm and finding that one thing we can hold on to. And like, I know a lot of meditation practices myself. I was telling you, energetically, it feels like we are in a choppy, stormy sea. And I'm so grateful for practices like Vipassana, where you and I met, where we learned this technique, this tool to find the still point, to just be with what is, to come calm. And there aren't that many people who've sat 10 days in Vipassana who can like access this, but there will always be something that life has initiated you into. And maybe it was that moment that you stood by the ocean and you looked out into the ocean, and you can come back to the attunement, the resonance of that. Maybe life initiated you to taking really good naps, and your naps are your doorway back to that calm, centered place in you. So yes, I love astrology. I am someone who's deeply like driven to dig into the karma, which was an interesting thing because when you sit Vipassana, you're not meant to go into the mind stories or the body senses or have any kind of little psychedelic experiences, but that's where my mystic mind goes sometimes. So I yeeted myself into different still points during that 10 days. But the practicality of it, to just come into the body, to just be with what is. It's such a gift. Like, this is why I am a little bit of a passionate missionary now, not for any other reason than that I think if it calls to you, answer the call. It's not going to call to everybody, nor is it a pathway that it does lead to like renunciation. Like if you follow this pathway all the way down, right, it leads to a renunciation of like everything that isn't just coming to this body and coming to stillness. And I'm not quite sure that's what I read in my karmic chart or in my desires or drives, like to not utilize music and dance and movement and the mysteries like in other ways. That's just, uh, but I'm deeply fed by the practice. And I come back to it in moments every day. So, yeah, I've just taken us on a whirlwind all around.
Oh,
But
so I mean, I'm so glad you brought up Vipassana because I forgot to totally mention that that's where we met and that we had it just felt like such a beautiful, natural, like sister, you know, um, connection. And then there was that Reiki drama, and you said something so beautiful to me that I'm still sitting with. It is the seed that has been planted that I'm just allowing it to take its time to, if it needs to take root and cultivate or not. But if you watch the Vipassana Reiki controversy podcast, you'll hear a lot about how I was not invited back because unless I forego teaching Reiki. And I just was so worked up about it, and I'm still mourning a little bit of it because I just found it is such a beautiful practice, and my body and mind, it is, I am the dancer, I am the singer, I am the move and flow and drum and wild ecstasy. And that's how I do find my prayer and my peace. But I also know I've got this Aries, or not Aries, Aquarius sun, and open Ajna center in human design. So I'm this massive airhead and I just have millions of ideas flying around all the time. And to just learn how to like phew, be okay with them instead of trying to move through them and sing and dance. It's just sitting with them and going, yep, and it's okay, and yep, and that's okay, and yep, and that's okay, and I don't have to do anything about it, I don't have to do anything about it, and I'm okay, and we're okay, and it's okay, over and over and over and over again.
Mhm.
um it's been really hard to, and I'm still, the practice is still really challenging for me. Like, I'm so glad that you find peace in it because it is work for me. It is a lot of fucking work for me to sit
Oh,
and not
yeah.
move.
Mhm.
And in fact, it's like the other day I needed a really good idea for something I was doing for this Dharma artist collective I'm a part of. And I just, nothing was coming to me and none of my normal things were working. And I was like, oh, I know, I'll sit in a Vipassana and all the ideas will come to me. But then they didn't because that's what I was looking for.
I
So,
find that it's just the practice of Vipassana is coming back to the body. It's like in the true essence of it, right? Because and you're speaking of like all the ways that we traverse in our minds, all the way that we traverse with our souls, like, but the body. So a lot of my practice has been my own first like experience myself, and then I bring this into my Reiki, I bring it into astrology, I bring it into everything that I do, all of my work is this concept that we are three we are this threefold being. We have this soul that definitely comes with like all these mystical powers, and like we just have so much potential and power that resides here in our soul. Then we have our literal body, like this is the blood and the bones, this is our ancestral lineage, like our ancestors have carried energy like through eons, generations, like what lives in the body. And Vipassana accesses that. Like it says, okay, there are reactions, like there's depth, and it like is encoded in our bodies. And now you have your mind, consciousness, sati, awareness, which like can go anywhere. You have an open ajna, your Aquarius, like, whoa, that is a wide open consciousness. So you're bringing consciousness and the body, the blood and bones, and the soul together. And usually, all of this, like the natural state of kind of mankind, has been very unconscious to any of it. So you learn when you go to Vipassana that your mind is reacting, 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 reacting. And we are trying to bring awareness, like actual sati awareness. You're invoking this Panya wisdom, and you're saying, okay, like help me just be present with what is. Well, we know that what is multi-layered, it is like transdimensional, that's reality. But here in this world, we're earth beings. We are like human, and a lot of us have to repair that connection, the willingness to be just human here. And so our earth-bound body, the doorway, one doorway, I mean, this is by no means all doorways, but one doorway is Vipassana, to sit with what is. And you're right, it's uncomfortable. I say it brings me to calm and peace, but that is because I spend so much time in all of this world, the soul world and the consciousness world. So it brings me to my actual body and it roots me to this earth. And the earth is what's calming, right? But the practice of sitting in Vipassana is not easy. It is like you are sensing, feeling. In fact, when I sat through Vipassana, you start to learn this technique on day 4. And through that whole journey, I was raw, emotional. They call it a soul journey, like a soul surgery. It 100% was. You are diving deeper and deeper and deeper. It is so uncomfortable. And I had this one session there where I was like, I had to come up. I was crying. I was like just bent over. And the sweet sister who was like the student helper, she like comes crawling over to me at the end. She's like, "Can you go talk to the teacher?" And I was like, yeah, you can go talk to the teacher, okay? So I go back into her little, teacher student room and she's like, are you okay? And I said, yeah, but that was like Christ in Gethsemane. Like I feel like I was feeling the suffering of my ancestor, like my that lives in my body to such a height. Like it was amplified, intensified. If we actually get in our bodies, that's how big it hurts sometimes. That's how big the sensations are. And if I think about how I'm carrying my ancestors like unprocessed, unconscious, undiluted karma, the sankharas, like these things, these reactions that arise up, like of course it makes sense that sometimes that's going to feel like Gethsemane. Now she's like, like, you don't, we're not actually in the Garden of Gethsemane. You do not need to be suffering. Like, if you need to come up, like, you're in ultimate suffering, like, come up. Maybe you're not going to burn that sankhara in that moment, but, like, so it is. You can come back to that. Um, but yeah, there is this honoring of how hard it actually is to sit with what is, just to be present, which is why that little anicca, everything is arising. It's all going to pass. Like, and that's the goal. I sometimes I don't sit through it. I just go, okay, and that is enough. I did 10 minutes. We're done for now. Um, so yeah, but I definitely feel that this energy of things arising from the roots is what is present. Like we to bring it back to your read today. Like what is the current energy of this moment? Like we are being invited in to an energy that is saturated and filled with unconscious like arisings. They are arising to pass and all with the intention of cleaning and clearing our consciousness so we can birth something new. But it hurts. It's like really painful. It's really hard, and we feel lost to it sometimes. It does feel like we are all being shepherded through a death portal, and we really need to learn how to be present with what is so that we're not shoving it down to deal with later, that we can just like see it, hold it, acknowledge it, witness it. And sometimes we really need community to do that. We need sisters and brothers and mothers and grandmothers and grandfathers. We need elders in our society who know how to hold the muchness of this karma that is like arising collectively, individually. And so, yeah, like the doorways in for me, Reiki has been a beautiful doorway. It has just caused me to connect with and understand my own energy, like, and the energy around me has made me like sensitive and attuned to the frequencies. And part of my experience in Vipassana was noticing how like my entire lifetime was seated, with the energetic awareness. And then with astrology as like this cosmic lens to be able to see these broad pictures, to look back into my own karmic like backpack and see what was there, see what's arising. Because I like to do it with so much sati consciousness that I understand exactly what this story is. Like I had an experience in Vipassana where I suddenly mid meditation, it smelled like death, Jenny. It just smelled like death. There was this heaviness, this weightiness on my chest and in my throat for almost the entire, like, 6, 7 days, whatever we were sitting with this Vipassana. And suddenly I had this, like, all my sense doors open and this story floods in. And it's like I carry ancestral memory of death, grief, weightiness, sorrow. And I could smell it and I could like taste it on my tongue. And it was like, okay, that's why the sense doors want to stay a little closed because not everybody wants to be doing the Vipassana and have something arise and be conscious of the smell, the taste, the touch, the like you don't have to put yourself back into that state. But for me, to kind of fill into what it is my ancestors carried deepens my honoring of their own journeys and deepens my understanding of what exactly is connected to that weight and that grief that I've been carrying all my life, that I finally learned to unleash and unlock over the last couple of years. But this journey of like awakening is not for the faint-hearted. It's not for those who like want life to be comfortable, but life isn't comfortable. And your resistance to knowing or sitting with it doesn't make it less intense or less Gethsemane like. You're initiated into this whether you know your stories or your chart or anything at all. But so yeah, I sat with that and I was like, okay, that's why they said just go to the body, just go back to the sensation. You don't need to relive all your dramas and traumas. But for me, it is another doorway in, a deeper resonance, a deeper understanding. And I can now, I look at my chart and I can see where I carry these. I look at my ancestor stories and I see where that is resonant. And I see what's being healed. And it deepens my understanding that my ancestral lineage is truly here to what they want is to cry out all the tears. They want to honor it. They want to say, like, there was a lot of sorrow, there was death, there was suffering, there was loss. And from all of this, we are learning to honor it, to be with it. And now, like, what is possible when we are no longer only resonating in grief and sorrow? Now we can, like, open, like in your very open aja and your sati awareness now awakens, and you can look around and say, like, I think there's some joy out there. Like I notice the sun. I can feel warmth when I'm no longer in the death's carriage, you know, mourning the loss. Um, Other frequencies are available to you. And that I think is like the goal of our collective awakening, is that we have been too long stuck in one way of seeing things, one way of operating with power, with all things, with male and female and the binariness and like the stuckness, and we're just like we balled ourselves into a level of consciousness that's so tight that it feels really scary to let go and know that there's something else possible. But we're all being awakened, slightly shaken, and it's really in service of like coming into what are your particular body ancestral memories and sankharas bringing to you? What did your soul collective want you to experience in this lifetime? And what magic are you bringing down? What power are you seeding into this consciousness? And then your mind consciousness, can you become so malleable? And I think you are this, and it's why you are such a gift to be speaking this new way out into the world. Can you be so malleable that you can almost like teleport yourself out of this realm and go like, what is needed, and then we come back in with like a whole new consciousness, a new way of doing things. That's kind of what our times are calling for. And the sky mirror is going to show us that this year. like my husband, he's so earthy, he's so grounded, he's so like 10th house, which is like work and career. And he's like, please stop saying that everything's going to change. He's like, it is dysregulating my system. And I was like, okay, I won't say it, but it's happening. Like you're feeling it anyways. Like every day when he comes to me, he's like, oh, like this is so like the intensity, if you can't eat it when it arises. Like it's just building and building. So yeah, collectively we are shifting, and these are the pieces that I see like playing out. And I think so many people who have entered into the realm of spirituality, healership, the tenders, the caregivers, the mothers, the fathers, like the grandmothers, grandfathers who are like awake, aware, doing this work themselves. Um, you are going to need to be more accessible, more more reachable, more vocal in just the way that you are doing things, Jenny, because people need to be able to find the people who have like just one step. You don't have to be a master at anything, but if you've taken a step to clean your karma and to awaken in any way, like you have some medicine for someone right behind you. And if we keep sharing that back, And I always have someone here. There's always someone. I find that life always brings me somebody in front of me who's doing something in a way that can trickle down to me. And so it's just this like we're meant to just pass the universe juice. The universe juice is passing down the line, and yeah, there's just there's a lot in the sky mirror that is reflecting that is saying, hey, some of you have been profoundly seated as Neptune traverse, like for the last, since 2011. And if you think back to your life, Jenny, and you just said, like, what happened in 2011? And like, what has my journey been since then? That's when Neptune, which is the messenger, the shaman, the compassionate, like, healer, started going through Pisces, its home sign. And so we're about to launch into Neptune in March, is going to head into Aries, then retrograde back, then kind of come back. So beginning this little journey, but Neptune, who has been prepared, now going into Aries, where it's like, okay, now you got to go do the brave, bold thing of being really like launching yourself in ways you haven't been willing to launch yet, in service of the collective, in service of your own healing, in service of your ancestors, your blood and bones. Like we are so prepared for it, but it still is going to be scary. It's still going to feel like shaky ground, because not just Neptune is moving, but like every outer planet will be moving, changing signs. Pluto already did. Pluto's the underworld, the unconscious, like ushering in this new future, showing us like all the different ways that we are, having things come up and arising, growing a new relationship with that. But Uranus is also going to will also change signs, and it's just collectively we're being birthed into a new consciousness, a new way of being. But that also trickles down individually. Individually, we're all being birthed into a new way of being, and it requires us to do this deep work. Whether we're using the lens of astrology or Reiki or some like mystical, field, or we're literally just doing the blood and bones work of waking up. Yeah.
Wow. There was a lot in there that I want to go back and be like, this is a whole podcast, and then this is a
You
whole
know?
podcast. But what keeps showing up for me is that, and you just brought it right back to it again. You finished right on it. Was your Garden of Gethsemane moment.
Mm-hmm.
I have had this inkling, this my own inner knowing that we're as we enter the age of Aquarius, because we've been in Pisces before, and Jesus brought in the age of Pisces, and that's why he has all of the fish symbolism. Before him was the age of Taurus, and that's why they worship the golden calf, you know. And so as we're transitioning into the age of Pisces, or excuse me, Aquarius, there was this really beautiful awareness that came to me of, I was raised in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and this thought kind of felt like super sacrilegious. But you also brought it up that you felt like you were in your own Garden of Gethsemane. And it feels like in Aquarius, there's this, Aquarius is humanitarian energy. It is, how can I serve? It's also the rebel and the alien. It doesn't quite belong. It's new. It's technology, like really heightened, fast technology. And we've seen all of this starting to uncover. And there's a lot of debate about whether, like, when we actually enter the age of Aquarius, and some say it would happen like 100 years ago, some say it's another 100 years away. There's some debate, and I would love your take on that. But the awareness that came to me after studying my gene keys and the shadow, the gift, and the city, the highest enlightened version, I was just like hit with this. We all have to be our own saviors. In the age of Aquarius, it's that individuality, because Aquarians are very individualistic. They want to do it their way. And it's this, I have to save my own damn self, and I have to suffer for all the sins that I am carrying. which is everything that you see. Like you talk about those three parts of us, right? The soul and the magic, and where that comes from, plus this body, the blood, the bones, the ancestry, and then the mind that's been programmed and trained and conditioned. And all three of those, I have to, on my own, hang on my own cross and die from all of those pains and sins and fears and struggles, and then give myself that rebirth of I am my own savior. I am the one that's come to heal my world. And it's time. It's fucking time. And it's so exciting. It's terrifying. It is terrifying, but it is so exciting. And this is one of the big reasons why I started the Sacred Intuition Society, because the need that I am seeing out in the world is this. We there's with we have the age of internet right now. I mean, oh, how cool that you are sitting where you're sitting and I'm sitting where I'm sitting, and whoever's watching this, wherever they're sitting, whenever they're watching this, it's all this beautiful energy. Like we have the Library of Alexandria at our fingertips. Like we can get a PhD on our own, just with our own little, research. And with a lot of wisdom comes a lot of responsibility. And we can't, the lies that we were raised with aren't working on us anymore, because, hello, I can fact check this now. And then, oh my God, introduce AI. And is that really true? But is and the fact checking place really true? And where do I go to find truth? What is true? How do I know what's true? And just like, this thing says, come home to yourself, find that place within you that is true, and hold on to it, and don't let anything or anyone ever dissuade you from that. And that for me is that intuition. And Neptune, like you mentioned, is the planet of intuition. And, Pluto's the dark, deep, it's shadow, the depths of that subconscious. But that intuition, when you can come home to yourself and you can discover what feels true in your body, or what you know or see or hear, however your intuition shows up for you. And that's what we teach in the Sacred Intuition Society, is how does it show up for you? But when you can know for yourself what's true, then you're empowered to make decisions based off of that truth. And so I'm really, really loving like this shift in time and change and technology and information. And it is really terrifying. And so the question that I have for you that just keeps coming up is, you keep mentioning karmic astrology. So I know there's Vedic, there's sidereal. Is that how you say that one? There's
Yeah, sidereal and Vedic are usually they're similar. Like they utilize I hear it used interchangeably.
okay.
So sidereal and Vedic. Then there is karmic astrology, evolutionary astrology, Hellenistic astrology. I mean, we're talking about all the different ways that ancient civilizations have used technology, like of the sky, and created myths and stories and experience of it. But I mean, it's a very practical thing. Like I explained to my husband, I'm like, look, when I stand up in the sky right now, and if you look up, a little while ago, we had this full moon, and with Cancer, and Mars was there in the sky. So if you looked up at the moon, you saw this red planet, this red light shining there. And like people just knew, like we just knew that when that red light was up there with that, like with the full moon, it was like an illumination of pulling to the forefront, like everything that Mars represents, which Mars is war. Mars is our passion. Mars is that which like pulls us into action. It's not always violent. It can be like heat and fire and sexiness, and like it's so many things. Everything in that sky is so layered, but in a very practical way, people across time and space like just knew, into, like they would just watch. It was the art of observation. This was science. You would look in the sky and you would see the moon at a certain, like, phase, and you lived according to the phases of the moon. And we used to live so connected to nature and so connected to the sky. I mean, I think about how much light pollution we have. So hard it as hard as it is to look up in the sky and actually see the stars, the planets, the illumination. But when you go to a place that is still wild, you can look up in the sky and see so many stars looking back at you. Um, well, the very practical thing, and astrology was birthed from that, from the science of observing the sky and noticing like what was happening with us, in us. A very practical level in Tahiti, my cousin lived on this tiny island, Maupiti, and she's like, on in Tahiti in Maupiti, if there was a full moon, you did not go fishing, and the reason why is because when you fish and you pull up those fish, they're like full of poo. They're like that everything in them has like surfaced in such a like the gunk has come up. And so they're like almost inedible. But if you go on a new moon or if you go wherever, like then those fish are so delicious to eat, like, and there's not all this gunk in them. If you go out onto the beach, like they cover their heads because like you would never fall asleep on a full moon outside. You would wake up with a headache. It's like pulling all the energy up, right? And like all the energetics. And so in very practical ways, people would observe, this is what's happening. This is what this sign, this phase of the moon means. Like, here's a great time to plant. Here's not a great time to plant. This is the time to reap. This is not the time to reap. This is a great time to go to war when, you know, like I've been looking up at the sky and Jupiter's up there with Aldebaran. And I was like, it's a lucky royal star. And Jupiter's lucky. And I was like, you would not want to take this person to court. Like the baby who's being born right now with this in the sky, like they would win every court rule. Like these are practical things that people would watch for. And then like you would kind of know what's seated in your soul, right? What are you prone to? Justice, like healing, big emotions, like strong mind. We knew these things back when we could see the stars, when we lived in flow with our nature. So, yeah, there are many, many branches of astrology. The main ones that I practice is karmic astrology, which is like looking at your birth chart as a snapshot in the sky, meaning when you were born in that moment, like your soul, body, and mind were all in alignment to say, like, this is what we're working on in this lifetime. This particular soul with this blood and bones, with this consciousness, and we're going to work together to create something. And you can see what karmas you hold, like, you're meant to look and see like the timing, the locations, like the baggage that's in your karmic backpack. But what I say is like, you don't actually have to know that. Oh, had a little beep over here. That was cute. You don't actually have to know what's in your karmic backpack. Like karma's going to come up and you're going to say, oh, I'm working on relationships. This is so weird. There's like a beeping in my room. I'm going to like do a small investigation. Give me one moment.
Okay, I'll pause it here. Okay, we're back. Everybody's safe and sound.
All is well, all is well.
But this is one thing I do want to point out that Nacy had a hit. Her
Mhm.
intuition, there was some anomaly happening around her. Ding, ding, ding. This isn't normal, but we'll carry on. Then it happened again. Ding, 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 ding. And the hit was like, I actually really need to check on this.
Yeah.
It turned out everything is okay, but she did need to check on it. She
Mhm.
needed
Yeah.
for it. And so that I really honor and appreciate you honoring your intuition and following that process. And we were both trying to figure out where we were before we
Yeah.
started. And and I was like, oh, you were talking about karmic astrology, and I was getting ready to ask you to read my chart. And she's like, I would love to do that. But she let me know. I'm going to paraphrase what you said and jump in if I need a little bit, if you want to clarify. But she said karmic astrology is not like personality, like tropical or Vedic, where it's like these are the fun things about you, and here's some of your shadow shit. But like, look at the fun things. Karmic is like your baggage, your shit that you come with that you get to deal with, and I reminded her that I'm a heretic and And that I don't believe sacred means secret. In fact, I think that the secrecy behind a lot of the sacred ceremonies is actually preventing people from receiving the healing that is necessary. I'm actually going to be teaching a how to be a sacred ceremony facilitator, and I'm going to be recording it. I record ceremony, and a lot of people think I'm crazy for that. Like, oh, it's, and I'm just like, but it can demystify and help
Mhm.
people feel comfortable to like some people won't go until they know, and so
Yeah.
here's a video of what it is, and now I feel comfortable to go. So I'm going to play guinea pig here, and, and it's because I, number one, I trust myself, and I do know that if you're saying something that feels like, ooh, I don't know if I'm ready to really talk about this, I will tell you, because that honesty is, one of the silas that we took at Vipassana. I've been really taking it to heart, and not only just with everybody around me, but also telling myself the truth, you know. And I also trust you and your intuition that you're going to see what you need to see and share what I'm ready to receive. And I've got a notebook, because what she said is that it's really best. She asks a lot of really good questions, and that if after learning what I learn here, I actually start to embody it and live it, then we meet again in 3 months. So, y'all, this is part one. You get to see Nacy again in March. So, I'm really excited. Anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah, I'll just say that for me, like I was telling Jenny, this has been so from the moment that I heard this woman in Hawaii at Dragonfly Ranch, her name was Nacy. She had short purple hair. And she said, like, what are your, top three? And I was like, top three what? And she's like, I don't know, your sun, moon, rising. And I was like, I don't know. I just like, I know my sun sign, that's it. And then she started talking about her moon sign, her Mercury sign, how she uses it. And she was speaking this language, and I was like, oh, I just like zinged everywhere. I knew that I was going to dive into astrology, and it was a language I wanted to learn. Um, so I've been initiating myself deeply devoted to it for the last 4.5 years at least, like every day back at my chart using this lens to see my karma. And so I'm more practiced than most people are. But what I want to say is that when you initiate a karmic astrology reading, what you're doing is you're saying, I want to see what this karma is. And you can see pertinent information. Now, the thing about a karmic astrology reading is that it is not the totality of what you carry or what your ancestors carried, but it's important neon flashing signs of like, hey, you have a lifetime with karma that you carry in your blood and bones. And it has this signature. It has to do with this archetype. It has to do possibly with this type of location. And so there's something in your life that you will probably see, like you've been seeing it all your life. But here it is in story form. So there are astrologers who take you on a storytelling journey. Like, they say like, let's do waymaking with your soul and figure out like what sits in that Venus lifetime. Like you want to clean up relationships, you better look at your Venus lifetime and see what was going on there and what relationship it's making, like aspect wise with everything else. So there are stories that start to unravel, and like you begin to be able to work with them with more consciousness. And that's why I say that it is a personal, like I would not look at someone's karmic, like at someone's astrology through the lens of a karma reading without their permission, without their consent. I would want to, do evolutionary astrology readings for like children and let the adult come and get the karmic astrology reading in some ways. Like they're just it's a deep work. But the real value comes when you use it in your life, when you start to use it, when you journal about your Venus placement, and you think, I think this is what's here. Like I'm working on this, and then you can take these things to your ceremonies, to your prayers, to your devotions. Um, and you can start to work with them, transmute them, integrate them, because the whole point of everything you will ever learn in astrology is to bring things to balance. Like this is a lifetime where, for example, my own personal Venus story played out all over my chart says I'm here in this lifetime to heal my trust in partnership, trust in marriage, trust in humanity, trust in humans as like a whole. I Sagittarius is the most non-human, the most wild, the most like in tune to nature, like nature spirits, nature, the land. Like I love that. I can pray over that all day long. And then like it takes a bit to like transmute that compassion, care to the totality of humanity. I have so much compassion and care for children, for, that's very natural for Sagittarius as well to have compassion and care for children and elderly and anyone going through any suffering, bleeding heart. Like, I love you. But for the tyrant, for the perpetrator, for the ones who are burning the world down, I'm working on that compassion. I'm growing it. I'm like learning to trust that the whole of life, the totality of life. And you were talking about Christ consciousness a little bit ago. I want to like wrap that up a little bit because Christ consciousness to me, like being someone who is organized religion and is untangling that myself, Christ consciousness is the energetic frequency of no exiles. Like there is this love and it is expanded and it contains the totality. It is the wholeness. So Christ in Gethsemane was about reclaiming the wholeness. It was about saying there are pieces of me that have been exiled into the unconscious realm, pieces of humanity, of our collective that have been exiled to the unconscious realm. Like I say, no, I have all compassion for the child, for the elderly, but not for you, X, Y, or Z. Like, and everyone probably has someone they can claim as like, you are my X, Y, or Z. Like, I don't even want you in my life. Unfriend. And so we're being invited into the age of Pisces, where we bring all that is, like all that life has initiated in us into, all that our ancestors have carried. And we're saying it's all a part of the dance, all of it. So if I'm exiling any piece of myself, then there needs to be a reclamation to that wholeness and integration to the wholeness. And so I work with Christ consciousness and I see it come up in everyone's chart. Like I don't know that there is anyone who doesn't have like the number 3 stacked in their chart right now in terms of karmic astrology. That's Christ consciousness. That is the energetic signature of I came here to reclaim my wholeness and to have it manifest, like the number 12, for example. The number 12, there you go. The number 12 is Christ consciousness to the 4th degree. This is like, so if you're someone who was born with your ascendant, your sun, your moon, something at the 12th degree, you came here to bring in the totality of the whole, to have no exiles, to bring Christ consciousness 4 times, which is earth. This is earth energy. In this realm, we will birth Christ consciousness. And you see that's in sacred geometry. Like there's so many doorways in, but karmic astrology is one of them that is teaching me how to apply that and where to apply it and what I'm meant to do with my own personal programming and my own blood and bones and like what is the song that's singing through me into this realm. I see it in astrology and that's what I love to share and I want people to be awakened even if it's just the attunement of like one introduction. And maybe you never have another astrology reading. Maybe it doesn't matter that your moon is in Leo, you never use it. But I want there to be one moment where we sit and we're attuned to the wholeness. I sing your song through astrology to you, and I say, "This is your code. This is you. This is the show." And then you can use it and delve in and just you're living your chart. You're going to do it whether we're conscious of it or not. But I love bringing things to my consciousness. I feel like I can then bring more power into what it is I'm doing instead of feeling like to bring it all the way back to your reading where we came and we said like, hey, we're lost and like find your core.
Mhm.
That's like, this is what we're doing. We're finding the core.
That
Yeah.
is the most beautiful definition of Christ consciousness I have ever experienced.
Hmm.
Not just heard, because that was an experience, Nacy. You have I'm like
Mm,
really emotional right now. You said
mhm,
some really powerful things. What is the song that wants to sing through me?
mhm.
And, the codes and like, this is your code. And I, I don't know if your chart has, I know you told me actually before we started, your chart says, hey, I need to shine. I need to be in the spotlight. You have a lot of power, my friend. And it is so felt right now.
Mm.
I just so appreciate you for showing up and sharing your magic. I There was something else I wanted to say. I must not need to say it, or it'll come back. Um,
Yeah, all to say, I'm really looking forward to reading your chart. I think you are going to be someone who's going to work with it in a way that is going to deepen and illuminate and truly just shine out into the world what is possible. Because some people take something and you are definitely going to metabolize this and then like use it to create, which is what we want to do. Like this is creation. We're here to create on this world. So you eat something, you digest it, it integrates, you create. And I am just excited to see what comes from this. So we will definitely sit again. We'll do a karmic astrology reading, and then we'll meet again afterwards to see what has metabolized and what has like integrated, what is being birthed from this understanding and integration. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
all right, so do I share my chart now?
Share it. Let's see it. Let's see. And so, karmic astrology though uses equal house.
Okay.
So, depending, usually most people know their Placidus chart and not their karmic astrology. So let me see what this
On the one you
is.
need, or do we need to get a different one?
I'm trying to see what system this is. I can't really see what this. Oh, it's Placidus. Yeah. So this is your Placidus chart. This is what we would use for evolutionary astrology. If we are doing a dive into evolutionary astrology, or if we're reading, for example, your solar return or anything like that, we would look at that chart. And what that's telling us is there are nuances. Like a Placidus chart is beautiful. I learned astrology on my Placidus chart. And there are doorways and pieces in there that like give layers to my understanding. And I remember we started this conversation off screen. And I was telling you that I am mentoring right now with a practitioner of Astro Sophia. Astro Sophia, Sophia, which is wisdom, and utilizing all your charts. So there is no system that I'm like, oh no, that's the wrong system. That's like not the true system. Some people do have that frequency, and they're like, only the true astrology is what I'll work with. But there is a form of Astro Sophia, which is wisdom, and you can, through ceremony, which I literally have heard this much about, but I am so intrigued. But it is that you can take your tropical chart, which is usually Placidus or equal house, whatever that is. You can take your sidereal chart. You take your draconic chart, which is the chart of your soul, and you integrate them through ceremony so that you can be the whole, the fullness, like the most alive, vibrant, pulsing version of your power, your karma, your ancestral bones, and your sati awareness that you can possibly be in this lifetime because you have like taken them all. And you're saying, I am all of this, but there's a song being sung through me in this lifetime. And here it is. Like, here it is. I'm living it. I'm conscious of it. I'm aware of it. And that is a whole different level of astrology. Like, and once again, I'm also going to say that do you have to go through an Astra Sophia ceremony in order to do that? Of course not, because life doesn't work that way. Like we will be initiated into our wholeness as long as we remain conscious, aware, like creating in our creation power. Like you're going to give birth to this glorious song, anyways. But now, is it nice to have like a guide? You know, you're on a journey. Like I get this picture like we're on a journey and you're going through mountains and forests and deserts and like all this wilderness. And do we not like to have guideposts along the way? Like, hey, yeah, this is in alignment. You are headed in the right direction. Like, other than the contrast to that is like constantly guessing, constantly wondering, am I doing the right thing? Am I like in alignment? Should I go here or there? Like, which trail should I take? Well, if you understand yourself a little bit better, like you know your song, it's a little easier to say, like, that's the direction. Like I hear those drum beats. That's for me. Like, or yeah, this is for me. That's not so much for me. Like I don't really need to focus on that in this lifetime because we can't do everything and have every experience. Like it's just not possible. The totality of this multiverse is so wide that we can't take in everything everywhere all at once. Like we just need to pick like little bits and pieces of it. And the more like you can hone this, the more you can like come back to that core as your original channeling, gifted us with, the more you can kind of come back to that core, the more potency and power you can breathe into this realm. So we all have like little pieces that we're meant to work on, work with, work within, co-collaborate with other people on. And yeah, that's the magic of life, the mystery of life, the gift of life as well. So yeah.
Gosh, I'm just like, what? So use Astro Seek is the chart that you use.
So I actually utilize an app called Astromatrix. And the reason why I recommend Astromatrix, I like tell every client, get Astromatrix. Listen, it's not like the most poetic. If you want poetry in your astrological understanding, please go see anything that Stephen Forrest, evolutionary astrologer, has put together. He is a poet. If you want practical, like very accessible advice, along with like meditation, that's Chani Nichols on her Chani app. Her book was like just delicious to read. But if you want a learning tool and one that you can kind of just like very easily navigate, it's so user intuitive friendly. It's the Astromatrix app for me because they have like they'll show you, for example, you run your chart, you put in your birth information. Now, here is a tricky point for some people. In order to have a correct like reading, you need to know your date of birth. And believe me, like some people, like I have a friend who was orphaned as a child. She does not know her date of birth.
Mhm.
There are ways around that. If you don't know your date of birth, your date of like the time of birth, you can go to an astrologer who is a rectification, like astrologer, who works to find the exact time based on events in your life. So, like, when did you get married? When did you have a child? When were you in that car accident? And they will like tweak your chart to find the day you were born, the time you were born. Because all of this information is so necessary. Like, you cannot say, my mom says I was born like at 5 a.m. or like around breakfast time. It's not good enough information to get a correct read. It will give you some. It's like during that moment, on that day that you were born in that location, there's a lot of information there for you. But karmic astrology needs your date, like the absolute, like the moment you were born, down to the minute if you can get it. If not, do what's on your birth certificate. I mean, your birth certificate, if it has it, is usually pretty correct. It depends on how careful people were about taking notes and did nurses notice what that was. So if you're having a baby, like have somebody note the time, like it's like that would be the truest like expression of their soul is the moment you breathe life.
So before the cord is cut or after the cord is cut?
Some people are like, have a debate about that,
Yeah.
right? For the most part, when babies are born, within like minutes, their cord is cut. Now, in some levels of like consciousness, that is like you are still tethered, you're still like a part of that oneness, that consciousness. And so it is the moment you are birthed and you are standing in your like form, whatever that means for to you, right? I would say probably when the cord is cut, you are like, and now the wholeness of who you are lands here in this realm, and the door kind of closes in some ways. And consciousness, spirit, like body, it closes that doorway that goes back, to the realm you just came from. It's like, and you're here in this portal, you're fully like planted and seated. So that would be the moment that I would look at. If you're birthing at home, like I would pick that moment. Um, But yeah, it doesn't have to be like to the exact second. But I mean, the closer you can get with the more intention, like this is a more accurate representation. Because what we're saying is that in the moment that you took your first breath, the stars in the sky were mirroring your exact karmic story. And so there are in karmic astrology, we're paying attention to every like the minute, like the very tiny minute minute that you were, and the seconds. Like so we have degrees, and each degree has 60 minutes within it, and there are 30 degrees per house. And so we're looking at what that minute was, because that minute holds coded information. But now if you think about like go up to the sky, like superimpose this like chart up in the heavens, like there's a lot of information like between the minutes, right? Like that's a lot. That's a whole bunch of encoded information. So we're not getting every single piece of your soul and like your journey and who you are, but we're getting some really important like neon signs, you know, about what exists there and how close it is to something else in the sky, or what the layers are that we can look back on. So yeah.
Fascinating. Yeah, because my mom doesn't know when she was born, and I also have a friend who was orphaned and found in the trunk of a car at
Mm.
a
Yeah.
natural disaster, and she was an infant, and they just, this is when we gave you a birthday, you know.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
he's been like, well, we can muscle test, but the fact that you've got, I mean, that's still
You can
fallible.
muscle test and then bring that date and then start with that as a starting date and see where it aligns. But that is one of the most beautiful, like, I think just it's magical, but it's so practical. It's like, it's the way that science is going to show you. Yeah, your life really did. Like, it is. There's a little timer. It's like ding, ding, ding. It's time for awakening. It's time for this little piece. It's time to start that adventure. Like, not that the stars are like making you do this thing, but they're reflecting your choices. They're reflecting what you're expressing in this lifetime. And so yeah, it is a cosmic and very personal dance that we're doing when we look at astrology. So
Very cool. So do you pull my chart or do I?
yeah, so if you send me your birth chart information, then I will pull your chart, and I just create, what I do is I create a slideshow presentation. I'm yet to determine whether it's just whether it's helpful for you to have access to that slideshow. It's just the way my brain thinks. I have a 0 degree Mercury placement, and it is in the sign of Capricorn. It's in my first house. So the way that this works is that I actually drink from the nectar of the universe from like a giant waterfall. Like I'm just like go 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 because I am endlessly curious. I am endlessly like seeking. I want more information, and it like pours through me. And I was told by my therapist, she said, Nacy, you are pouring from a cosmic vase, like onto your husband, and his ability to hear astrology is a thimble cup. You know, so like if you say the mysteries of the universe and da 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 da, and I learned all this today, he's like, he freezes, like he literally freezes, and she goes, I just want you to notice how he just touched it, like he grabbed his phone and he started, and she was like, because you fritzed him, like it was too much information. So I try to put information when I do charts, like all the nectar of the universe, and then I try to make it I put it in words in a format so you can come back to it later, because I know I'm giving you so much information which is why I record the sessions, why I post them on YouTube for people so that they can like watch them later. You can come back and like eat this in 5 minute bites if you need to, you know. But I prepare that, and then that's available for as long as YouTube has this running, you know. And yeah, it just and then the goal is that you would then work with it. And so there are journal prompts in on every slide. It's like, what more can I do to think about my Venus lifetime? How are relationships showing up in my life? Like, how are they showing up specifically, like in this house, which is an area of life? Like, do I notice anything about that? I just want you to have doorways in. Then, if you like wanted to continue the journey further, you would schedule another appointment. Or if you have something happen in your life, often people will schedule with astrologers when a challenge comes up. They're like, hey, like this area of my life is being so pinged. And can we take a look at what's being activated? Because sometimes it's current stuff in the sky and you can see it. And Okay, that's probably what's happening. Um, for example, right now, the nodes of the moon just switched signs. So collectively, we all just went through an Aries Libra axis. That's where the eclipses were happening. It's just like it's an elliptical point of the moon. And we just got really activated in Aries and Libra. So wherever that was in your particular chart, like what area of life did that affect? That's where you had some big power moments, some big shifts, some big like shakeups, all in service of you cleaning up and clearing out your karma. And now the nodes just switched into Pisces Virgo. So for some people, this is a nodal return. It's like that's where the nodes were when they were born. It's more personal. Or if you have your sun, your moon, your Mercury, like you've got personal planets in the Pisces Virgo axis, this next year and a half will be personal. Personal, like you will be like, this tsunami is personal. Like it just wiped out, my wiped out in the best ways, wiped out in the hardest ways. Like, my husband don't want to hear that either because he has a Pisces moon. He's like, don't tell me that. He's like, I don't want to know. I don't want to know what's coming for me. Let me just live it. And I said, it's fine. You don't have to be conscious of it. But if this were my axis, which last year was my axis, I wanted to know so that I could like pay attention to these areas of my life so I could bring more consciousness to them. But we're all being asked to clean up our Pisces Virgo. Pisces is spirituality. Pisces is our compassion. Pisces is our ability to activate like that Christ consciousness and take down the boundaries, dissolve what is coming up to be integrated. And Virgo is the part of us, the south nodes in Virgo, the north nodes in Pisces. South node is that which we are needing to let go of. Like we have so much experience in this area, so much karmic like energy packed in our backpack around Virgo that is not helping us. And Virgo is the part of us that wants things to be perfect. It is the part that does not want to have to do hard work. Sometimes, like, they're great students, but they want it to be perfect the first time they do it. Like I have a Virgo son child, and he was the best at cursive handwriting. So beautiful. Like it came from a past life, his perfect penmanship. But then if he has to learn a new skill, he's like, oh, like emotional angst. I mean, he's a Cancer rising too, but oh, he's like dying because he doesn't want to have to learn it. He just wants to know it. Like, can I just know this thing? But we're letting go of this year the ways that our thinking needs to be reordered, and we're just not willing to like let go of that. We're letting go of perfectionism and judgment. It's so critical of itself and others. And then we're growing into Pisces, like compassion, spirituality, boundaries, also cleaning it up, also saying, like, hey, there's ways that we have behaved in spiritual ways that need cleaning. So, yeah.
So, okay, so when you say like I'm a Virgo rising
Mm,
and it's in my first house.
mhm.
Is that what I would be looking at?
So I would imagine that you would have this year. The eclipses are happening probably it depends on do you know your rising degree, your ascendant? Do you know what degree that is?
I mean, you want me to pull my chart up
Yeah,
again?
pull your chart up.
That would show.
So is that like a nine? I think it's rising nine. Yeah,
Yeah,
I feel like that's a ninth degree. Yeah, 958. Okay. So, yeah, so if you look and see right now, you have part of it is in the 12th house, part of it is in the first house. And so this is really, and since it's south node, you are going to really have like this extra emphasis on letting things go. The 12th house is dissolution, letting things go. It is spirituality. It's like going to it's Vipassana. You go to retreat and
uh-huh.
you have a deep immersive experience, and from that you refine what stays, what goes. right? So you have that, but it's also very personal because this is your rising sign. It's how you dawn into the world, which means that your entire childhood was seeded with Virgo energy for good and bad, right? There are things that have to do with the Virgo archetype. So you should definitely study Virgo archetype, like learn what the energies of that are. And then you would say to yourself, like you would journal and ask yourself, how do I identify and move through this world? Because one is the body, one is your identity, one is like your ego self, like who you are, how you're showing up in this world. And it has a lot to do with that. First house has a lot to do with your childhood and the way that you were launched into this lifetime. So there are seeds from a while ago that like maybe have grown into things that you want to release this year. I'm karmically fed up with this, like saturated with judgment or saturated with whatever it is. And you're ready to kind of let those drop away. Now, Pisces is in your sixth house and it sits on your descendant and it's in your seventh house. So the sixth house is daily routine. It's like what we give our time to, what we have to devote ourselves to every day. Your sixth house is actually ruled by Saturn, and it is ruled by Aquarius. So that would suggest that like every day you're doing things different. You're like, it's outside of the box. Like you're not doing the average show. And you spend a lot of time in this world of like future building and of possibilities and potentialities, and probably with your authentic signature of who you are. You're devoted to that. You have your sun there as well, which is how you aspire to shine into the world. So your daily, every day is something that you're shining into the world. And I see that in how you're like, hey, I'm doing meditation, like join me for my meditation. I'm doing this, join me for that. Like what you're doing, you're already shining and making available, making visible to everybody. But Pisces is going to shake up these eclipses will shake some of that up. Like you may, by the end of this next year and a half, do some of your routines differently. Maybe the way that we have experience our physical bodies as well, like physical health. The way you live in your body could be shaken up. This is the first house, the sixth house, the seventh house, like these axes, they're being illuminated. So anything that shows up for you is showing up to bring you to like the wholest version of yourself, right? And you will know this is the thing that I'm meant to let go. This is the thing I'm meant to implement in my life. Even just this meditation that you like, the Vipassana meditation that we're doing, it's so Virgo Pisces. It's so on this axis. And the fact that you added it into your daily routine, and you will probably be doing that for the next year, that's an indication of like a big energy shift, right? What is that going to bring into your life because you're inviting in this meditation?
Mm.
Um, and then the seventh house here, where you also have Pisces, this is partnerships. This is marriage and committed relationship, but also like clients that you have. It's anyone that you have on a one-to-one basis that you're very like intimate with, right? And so that seventh house is also going to get activated in spiritual ways, like in the ways where our boundaries merge, in the ways that we are bringing this Christ consciousness energy into this realm, right? Like you're going to experience, um, you're going to experience that activation. Whereas like somebody else, so my Pisces is in my fourth house. My Virgo, it rules my 10th house. And so, um, yeah, it's personal. Like my home, the foundations of who I am are shifting. Like I am awakening to a different way of walking and being in this world, foundationally shifting consciousness as well. And then what I'm prepared to share out into the world, culminations, work, visibility, that's getting like a major, eclipse, like electrified charge this year and a half. And so if I don't choose into any of that growth, if I just like hunker down and I'm like, I'm gonna stay, it's all gonna be the same. Eclipse energy won't let it be the same for one. Like you don't really get to resist the tsunami coming for you, but you can work with it, you can swim with it. Um, you can learn to shapeshift within it and figure out what is the right piece for you. And yeah, I fully anticipate that like this thing I've been working on, which is being more visible, is gonna shift this year. And anything in my Virgo that was keeping me back from that is just gonna disappear, dissolve, like dilute. And it's going to be like all of that's going to happen. The only thing that could get me to make myself visible is that I care so much about what's being seeded in this, in our collective. It was like when certain events like got triggered this last year and a half, it threw me into the deepest grief of my life. And I had to meet that, go all the way to the bottom of it and say, like, where's my place of power here? Where is my place of power? And I found it in the Christ consciousness. I found it in doing this really deep ancestral work, in calling in all these kin. And now I just know, I know that we are all collectively meant to now bring the depths of this work into this realm in that very, 3-12-4 way, to make physically manifest the communal care that we've all been seeding like on a deep level. It's why I do my deep work, because I want to clean me, but I also want to clean like the whole the whole consciousness. Like, no biggie, just clean and cleanse everything. But really what that ends up being is accepting the whole,ness, which brings us back to Vipassana, which is like a Nietzsche.
Yeah.
Everything arises, it will all pass. How can I be with what is in the most gracious way that I know how to be?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I want to touch on that point for a moment because this is something I've been struggling with even before Vipassana. Is this, everything is exactly how it's supposed to be. Right. The yin and the yang, there's the light and the dark, there's the good and the evil, there's the right and the wrong, there's the up and the down, there's polarity there has to be. We live on a planet where there's gravity and time. We are ruled by that. But then there's the soul gifts, and then there's the mind consciousness, and there's this sometimes when you can get to that point of like all is well in each this is exactly how it's supposed to be, it can feel almost apathetic
Uh-huh.
and
Mhm.
futile. Like, what is the point? Why
Yeah.
should I even try?
Mhm.
It's gonna be whatever it's gonna be. So why do I need to show up and try to do any of these things? Because sometimes it's a pain in the ass and it's hard and people judge you and or it's scary or whatever. And it's just like so, and I know like in the Vipassana training, there's very much this talk of, when you realize everything is the way it is, and there's this equanimity perspective, you can look at everything, there's no right or wrong, good or bad, there's no judgment. When you can meet things where they are, is actually when it's the only time you actually have power to do anything, to make any real effective change. Because
Mhm.
anytime that you're making change can come out of discomfort and rage and, passion and excitement and joy, but it's still kind of skewed when you're in this neutral place. It's like this awareness of, okay, this is a beautiful foundation, and now I have this safe space to move forward. And I don't know if I'm articulating it very well, so I'd love to hear your take on this.
So I recently was recommended to look into the work of Byron Katie. I've been recommended this before. I haven't quite ever like dived into it. Um, but in it, so Byron Katie has this powerful story, powerful experience, um, where she had this like shift come upon her. In one moment, she was in her misery and suffering and sorrow, and she literally wanted to die. She would like, take me off, take me off, take me off the planet. Well, I'm paraphrasing the paraphrasing that I received, but she awoke one day with no mind, no consciousness,
Yeah.
and watched a cockroach climb across her foot because she was stuck up in the attic. Everyone in the halfway house was afraid of her, and they were like, "Go up to the attic."
And she doesn't feel worthy of laying in the bed. I'm not
Yeah.
worthy of laying in the bed. I'm going to lay on the floor. I'm not worthy of even a bed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Amazing. So even further, she's just sitting there. She sees a cockroach climb across her foot, and from the no mind space, something new can be born. So from that, she was like, wow, what is right now is this glorious creature climbing across my foot. I don't even know what this is. She didn't know who she was. She didn't know there was no mind. And it took her a while to regain her mind, I guess. And so but she remains in equanimity. And that has been the practice that she has honed, and what she shares is like equanimity. Now, she was sharing in when I was listening to her audiobook, she's like, you get slapped in the face. Wonderful. The pain and suffering, misery is behind you. And I was just like, I was like, total equanimity. Like, this is like not good, not bad. And so there are layers and layers to this level of consciousness that is so hard to even perceive or experience from our mind, because our mind is not no mind. We have so many stories, like slapped in the face. Okay, karmically, da 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 da, uploading new programs, going back all the way to your childhood and beyond, the blood and bones of you. There are so many stories activated from a slap in the face, like so many. And so we don't usually all exist in no mind, right? And but I can
Child,
feel
a young child? Was it male to female? Was it right? I mean, there's
like, yeah,
so
your tabs are all open, like computer program tabs going, how do I make sense of this? Da, 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 da. And then we come up with a story and how we behave, uh, what we believe, that story that we believe is what shapes our future. So I understand the power of equanimity, of remaining neutral so that you can pick a good story to move forward and maybe see more, breathe more life into this than you would otherwise be able to have access to, because of all the tabs that otherwise just automatically autopilot go, and then a story is created and we live from that story. So much power in the here and now to create a new reality, for sure. Now, there's this piece that like it's the bodhisattva or the transcendent, like did the Buddha ascend and then he came back and he wanted to teach? There is this compassion that pours from those who are usually enlightened, but they are not necessarily joining us where we are because they no longer live in the story we're living in. And so to those who still live in the stories, there are bodhisattvas who come, like Jiso is a bodhisattva. Uh, a it's a Jiso is a bodhisattva who comes to those who are like in hellscapes. And there is a particular chant or mantra that you can use to invoke, the presence of this Jiso, who's a Japanese saint, enlightened being who can meet you at the crossroads. And there's so much power in that, right? Is there more power or less power in Jiso, the bodhisattva, or Byron Katie, the no mind, presence? Like these are different, there are different frequencies to meet people at different levels of consciousness where we are. Where we are is the medicine, like, is the medicine we need, So for some people, it's going to be Vipassana and it's going to be the Buddha's teachings, and they are going to get the most clean, clear, like cleansing of their life by just being completely 100% adhered to this. And for someone else, it will be calling upon Jiso and using mantras and like mudras and different ways to meet right where they are. And for others, it will be nature gods. And for others, it will be the Great Mother. But all of these are reflections of the cosmic mother who contains the wholeness of it all, the Christ consciousness, which has no exiles. All doors, I think, lead us back to the wholeness. And so from that no mind, the wholeness can be accessed. But even then, she still has to choose. Like she's choosing from that moment. I choose deep joy. The suffering is behind me. Like from that moment, she was still choosing something. Of all the things that she could have responded with, she chose to go with exultant joy. The suffering is behind me. So I don't know. I personally believe in the power of that still point. I've experienced it myself. The miraculous shift of consciousness has been gifted to me again and again as someone who's delved deeply into grief and depression and like the stuckness of that, and to be able to receive the miraculous, almost seemingly miraculous, but these are like frequency expansions. Um, and to be able to attune to something different, it's powerful. So,
Yeah, I love Byron Katie's work. I've been doing her Judge Your Neighbor worksheets for years. And in fact, in 2019, I went to her New Year's Eve mental health cleanse in LA, and it's a day juice fast. And
oh,
you just sit and do the work with her all day, every day, and she brings people up on stage. And I remember this moment, somebody was asking a question about this pain and physical pain, and like she had ancestors that were in the Holocaust.
yeah,
And so Byron Katie takes us through this visualization of being walked to the gas chambers and being beaten by Nazis, and in each moment she freeze frames, and it's just like, okay, what do you notice around you? Is the sky blue? Is the and it was just like, how, and
mm,
by the end, I could not be mad at the Nazi soldiers.
mm,
And everyone I've tried to explain this to is just like horrified by this concept. But
mm,
when, she gets you so beautifully right in equanimity and anicca, this like, the one soldier just kicked you and the other one's leg is, coming back to kick you again. But in that moment, no one's kicking you. And it's just like, how, how in the world? But it's this sense. It is like, there's no, I can feel the frustration of teachers often in this because I've experienced it, but there's no language that
yeah,
can quite capture it. The
mm,
the best the best story, personal story that do you have some time?
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
The best personal experience that happened to me was just last year. My mom was in the hospital with cancer, going through her treatments, and it was rough. It was really, really hard. And I had actually just come to pick her up and take her home for the first day in months. And she had taken a nosedive and was in so much pain, and they didn't know what was going on. So they were, sending more result tests and waiting for results. And she was just in so much pain. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to live anymore. And I'm sitting there witnessing this. And then she tells me to leave. Like, you don't need to be here. Get out of here. Just because she can't, like as a people pleaser, I can't take care of myself and take care of you. And I'm like, Mom, let me just take care of you, but I understand because it's deep. That's really deep. So, but I'm not going anywhere because my all my family's waiting to hear what's going on. And I'm the mouthpiece and I'm the one there. So I'm sitting in the waiting room, and I'm doing everything I can to find this just neutral space, just peace. I'm praying, I'm doing my focusing on my breathing, I'm doing my mantras, I'm tapping, I'm just like, oh my God, how do I? And I'd been
Mm.
there for hours. And at one point, when I open my eyes, I see this man bending down and looking at me, and he's like, "Hey, are you okay?" And he's got a name badge on, and he goes, "I'm the non-denominational chaplain here, and I've seen you, as I've been doing my rounds. You looks like you're going through some stuff. Would you like to talk?" And I am just like, "Wah!" And I share my whole life story and the struggle with my dad and patriarchy and
Wow.
I
I'd
know,
like to see the transit that day.
right?
What was coming up?
Right. And my mom had asked me for help with, the alternative natural ways, and my dad doesn't want anything to do with it. And then, this, all of this, and my mom not wanting to live, but I want what's best for her, but also she's my mom and I want her to stick around. And so I'm just like bouncing back and forth between these, like, I have so much compassion and understanding for my mom and her situation, and she's my mom. and she's one of my best friends, and I love her, and I want her here. And like, how do I bring these two parts together? And I'm just struggling. And so, after I've released, all of my, like, and I left the church and I'm the apostate, and, and I've spent my life's work studying consciousness and all, all of these things. And he's just like, and then I ask him, I'm like, so how do I find this middle point? And he goes, ooh, that's a really good question. Do you mind if I take some time? And I was like, take all the time you need. Angels, give him answers because you're not giving them to me. And I'm just like, send him what he needs. So it just takes him maybe 5 minutes, maybe 5 minutes. And he goes, okay, I've got it. And it's a quote by Walt Whitman. And it goes like this: do I contradict myself? Very well, then, I contradict myself. For I am vast. I contain multitudes. And I'm sitting here literally holding my hands out like he can see the two parts of me that are trying to find this piece. And he says that, and I just start laughing and sobbing at the same time. Just like, oh my God, like I can hold both. And then he goes on, says some really beautiful things. He says, it sounds like your life work has brought you to this exact moment, that you have been preparing for this for a lifetime. You know what to do. You've got this fear, scarcity. Oh my God, what do I do? It's my mom. How do I save her? And also this complete love and compassion and equanimity for her as her own sovereign being. Now, you in the center here, now that you can see both and you've been experienced both, you get to choose. What one will you walk through? How will you step? Will you step through fear and scarcity and pain and suffering, or will you step through love and compassion and equanimity? And I was just like, wow, okay,
Mm-hmm.
yes. And it's just been so powerful. Are you familiar with internal family systems?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's like the new Carl Jung,
Yes.
it's like the Carl Jung of our time, these archetypes, and you talk about myths. And it's so interesting because collectively as a society, we've lost our common myth. We've lost
Yeah.
our common cosmology. We all used to believe, that the sun was the god. And then when science came along, then science was the god. And then religion became the god. And it's like now we're all separated. And some people are like, I don't know that there's even a god. And we don't have a common cosmology anymore. And it's like untethered is the word that is coming to me. No one is connected to anything anymore, and no one knows what to really connect to. And there's, of course, those that are like, this is the way. No, this is the way. No, this is the way. And there's even
Well,
another.
the certainty of it all, the
Uh-huh.
certainty has been swept out from under us.
Ah,
So, because we are also interconnected in such a spacious way, like, I mean, we no longer live in isolated villages or tribes, and we have the entire like cosmos open to us in this age of Aquarius with technology. So, the certainty that we used to have when this was all we knew. Um, no longer is available to most people, right? And so our consciousness must shift. We must like expand to take in more to get all the way to the multitudes. For some of us, I mean, some people it's just like blown completely. And so you're like, well, then what is there? There's just the multitudes. They're the all of everything, the reality of nothing. Like, and you do want to, it feels so terrible to a lot of people to feel like you're free falling, through a rabbit hole. And so somewhere you pick a ground somewhere, like what is your stability? What is it? For some people, it's just total equanimity, anicca. Like I don't know. For me, it has been picking Christ consciousness, picking the piece of the great mother that I can resonate with that sings through me. So it's always going to come down to what is your story? what stories are you making up of what you've seen of the universe, and what has the universe shown you in terms of like fodder for your story, and how open can you be to creating a new story now and then, because sometimes we reach the end of that particular story. No longer, it literally, we can't become a new thing. We can't take in this new information unless we drop this particular thing. And so, yeah, there's just, it comes back to the cosmic dance.
Well,
uh,
it feels like it's come full circle again to that thing that's within you, your own magic that makes you feel the most alive, and do that thing, go in that direction. And so this whole, like, when you can get really, and I think that's part of like our societal, it feels like not necessarily a problem, but it feels like, I don't know, there's it's something happening in the society where people are just really apathetic. And it's like, I don't really have any power. Who am I to really make any change? What is really the point of doing this anyway? And I mean, it's, you can see it in our rate of suicide numbers. Just like, I'm checking out. I can't, there's no point. What's the point? And when there's, and I feel like that's always a part of the like awakening process. Like if there were stages, this whole apathetic, feeling futile and hopeless, because yeah, it's all part of the cosmic dance and I really don't have control over any of it, and I also am part of it. And and it just, you can like my Virgo rising, right? Like that over analytical mind combined with the airhead, mind, it can be really disastrous inside my head sometimes. And I find it really interesting at the Vipassana that I didn't go through a Garden of Gethsemane. I killed myself. I
mm,
literally took a gun to my head and blew my
I
brains
remember
out.
you
I
saying that.
couldn't handle the thoughts anymore. It was just like,
Mm,
it was like, oh, and it was just like, I had to get rid of those parts. And it's like, I'm literally rebuilding this process. And it's so interesting that, I mean, yeah, the eclipse and my Virgo in, self, and and home and ego and me, and a little bit of like, what else is in the 12th house, because there's, a little bit of the 12th house, but the unconscious
mm,
spiritual, life. And then the Libra in the, sixth house of like how I serve and my partnerships. It's like, it just really fascinating how it all really comes together, and like it is this really beautiful map. And I feel like awareness is half the battle, and the awareness of this is how I was designed, this is how I came, this is how the stars all breathed into me on my very first breath, that formed my cellular genetic, combination of soul cellular makeup.
yeah.
Knowing some of those pieces helps me have more equanimity with myself,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
gives me courage to step into those parts of me that I thought, that's crazy, you're wild. Like, oh, no, no, no. I came here to be this way. Actually, like, I'm the one that's supposed to do this. I'm supposed to
Yeah.
crazy act.
So there are these pieces, there are pieces when you look at an astrology chart, it's all seasons and cycles. It's the wholeness within the fullness, right? That we're looking at. We're looking at the entire cosmology, every energetic signature that could possibly be told, like every story ever sung. It's all contained in the wheel, the big wheel. Um, which is karma spinning its wheel. I love the analogy of the weaver and like, what thread am I weaving in this lifetime? Who am I co creating with? Now, there are such moments of exquisite pain embedded in our karmic will, like moments like that march to the gas chambers, moments where we meet our deepest pain, where we've fallen all the way down the rabbit hole, or we feel like we will endlessly fall down the rabbit hole. Like we get stuck in the stories, we get stuck in the experience, and that is the karma that gets shoved away to be felt later, like or that gets shoved down into another lifetime. It just gets recycled through our blood and bones, through our consciousness. We have many old decaying stories. So I have always had an affinity, like just this compassionate heart for those who choose death by suicide, because what sings to me from that space is the immensity of this intense emotional experience, physical experience, experience of the mind. And there is no room for any other story from that space. It is like all of life has come down to this point, and there's nothing else possible. And so often that is that sense, like you had that small experience on a mental level of saying, I have reached this, and from this, like we need a cosmic reset in some ways, you know, like nothing else is possible. I can't see how I can move in any direction. But the gift of life, if you allow it to continue, like, you know, even your mother in that moment. My father also, when he passed, he was like, please take me, like he was actually speaking that for like the last 10 years of his life. Like, mom, like he would call out to his mother and he would say, like, come and get me, I'm done with life. I think I've done what I came here to do, like let's go. There is a big part of us that's just so tired of carrying the karma we're carrying and just wants to be done. And we reach those points where we're like, it has to be done, it will be done. And yet if you meet that point and you keep going through it and you don't check out, there is something that life will teach you. There's more possibility. And even for those who have like checked out in this way, death by suicide, there is more. They're like immediately life will show them more. It will, like it has to, it must, because this is life, because everything arises and it passes, which is actually the deepest grace that I've experienced in my life, is that there is no, in this cosmic whole, in this wheel of time that the great mother is spinning, where every love is possible, and so is every hatred, so is every pain, so is every joy. In this wheel where everything is possible, you will never be stuck in any moment. Even those who feel like they were stuck, who have taken that to that ultimate end for this particular body, this particular soul, this particular mind, even then, there is always something cycling through. And so it is the strongest evidence that the great mother herself is ultimately carrying, that the universe is compassionate to me, is that we can never be stuck. We will never be trapped in our mind, in our soul, in our bodies, in our experience. And that in every moment, just as you said, there is always the possibility to tell a new story, to like sing a new song. And I think we are here as creators trying to fill into that, like learning what songs are. And like, it is like when we hear someone else singing, sometimes it really does awaken in us the possibility that we could sing that song too. And so there's so much grace. There are like I've pared down my life to the fact that I know that my song is singing in four things. It's love. Everything always comes back to love for me. Like I can choose many things, but love has no boundaries. Love in the Christ consciousness way. Grace, the grace that this great mother extends to us all. Mercy that we extend to ourselves and others. And then compassionate joy, which like is the thing that I am learning. My ancestral line is learning to seed, is compassionate joy. Those are my four core pieces. And for others, there will be other resonances. But like for me, all of life is teaching me this, teaching me this. And I've had to let go of so much, so many stories have stood in the way of the resonance of this, and continue to teach me, you know, where I stand in resistance to this particular thing that I'm like praying down, beaming down. But in the end, that's my level of consciousness. That's where I am wanting to create. It's my playground, right? Is to work with these entities, these deities, this kinship, this earth, the wild things in the earth, the actual like the Galapagos. I love the Galapagos, the fire, the water, the earth, and the air, you know, like just the basic building blocks of this reality in service of these things. That's my playground. And I love that astrology allows me to kind of see what neon blinking signs are for other people. And I'm excited to dig into your chart and to, yeah, continue this.
Mm. Well, thank you, Nancy. This has just been so soul filling, and I so
Mm.
appreciate the beautiful, very poetic and powerful words that you have shared today and perspectives too.
Mm.
So if someone wants to have a karmic astrology reading with you or work with you and or have another conversation with you, how do they find you right now?
Yeah, I'm literally building a website as we speak in my very like eighth house, 12th house way. I'm hidden behind doors at the moment. I do have my Instagram, which is Sagittarius Shares the Fire, and you can reach out to me there. Like people trickle in there and are like, "Hey, I want a reading." Hey, and I'm like, "Yes, I would love to do that." But I am working on the website. But until then, find me at Instagram. It's Sagittarius Shares the Fire. And the reason I have that is because I am fire. Like I am Aries South Node. I am a Leo moon. I am Sagittarius, and I'm heavily Sagittarius at that. And so the energetics that I received for that was that Aries starts the fire, initiates it, and then Leo tends to nurtures, cares for the fire. And then Sagittarius goes out and shares the fire. And that is like the truest expression of who I am. That like I just like I start these things. I'm a change breaker in my family. All of my siblings are. We are all heretics and all rebels, and nobody's doing and healers, and no one's doing anything in the linear way. And it is, you know, such a confusing experience for my mother. She was like, "What happened? Where did this come from?" And I was like, "I think our lineage seeded this. Like, I'm pretty sure the ancestors said, shake it up, send some Tahitian energy down into that like Idaho line." And like new beats, new songs, new energy flowing, and we all showed up this way. So but yeah, I love to share what I learned. And so yeah, find me there.
Love the stories that you do weave too. And I'd be fascinated to know if you have, like you have the archetype of the Leo fire versus the Aries fire versus the Sag
Mm.
fire. Like, so Aquarius sun, Aries moon, and then Virgo rising. There's the air sign. What is the Aquarius air, versus the Libra air? And what is the, you don't have to go into that right now.
They're just focused on different things. So air is communication. Air is how we converse with each other, and Aquarius is oriented to the future. It's oriented to possibility. Virgo is about like honing something, like making it practical. It's like taking the earth wisdom that you have and perfecting something. It's that also the sign of like information and connection in service of healing. In like Virgo's the healer. Virgo is also the teacher. Virgo is the student, right? But Aquarius is like doing its own unique show. Like it's just very different. It brings in, I think, cosmic energies, cosmic frequencies, where it's Virgo is very earth-based, very practical, very much about checklists and like setting goals and accomplishing them. And then Aquarius blows up the goal and is like, but what is possible now? Like now that we have no boundaries, no restrictions. And then Libra is all relational. Libra is about in service of harmony, in service of balance, in service of justice, in service of relationship, like bringing things back into harmony. If you are heavy Libra placement, then there's nothing that you do where you are not considering somebody else first. Like, and that is my North Node. That's where I'm growing into. I have Pluto over there. That's not like the most like conscious energy to me, but it's definitely it's my midheaven. So in astrology, my midheaven is my soul signature. Like that's the natural signature of the soul that I'm working with, the soul consciousness. So I've been seated with that. It will come, but like this blood and bones did not want to trust others, doesn't want to take other people into consideration, is very protective and very power conscious. So these are some of the ways that those archetypes are playing out in us, and understanding your particular flavors. When I speak to you already, like I can see you saying like, nope, that's not me, or yep, that's me. That's the magic of this, is that you can recognize yourself. You can see yourself in these cosmic energies that exist out there. And you can be like, yeah, that is me. This is the gift I have, or this is something I really need to grow in. And I'm conscious of it. So I'm going to do it.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
the shake head shake there was I don't have any Libra placements. I was
Yes.
like, what's the air Aquarius versus air, and then yeah, but so fun. And then like how they battle within each other is just fascinating. So guys, 10 out of 10, like get with Nacy. She's just so amazing. I'm so excited to have a reading
Yeah.
and to have a
Schedule it.
part two where we get to revisit. And then also you get to share, your work that you've been doing on another level where you're stepping into that, like, it's my time to
Yep.
shine.
Shining in service. I'm willing to shine in service. There's that. Yeah.
North Node is in Leo. So I'm like, having to like, this is Lion's made this baby up. I know.
Oh, I love it. All right. Well, we'll be in touch. So.
Okay, thank you so much. And everybody check out, I'll put her Instagram link below. And yeah, go check her out. Her Instagram is beautiful.
Oh, I love you.
Let's see, I don't want to do that button. Where is the end?